Unsyndicated presents Off the Air with Sean Belegian.
What is up? You know, the coolest thing about doing a podcast, before I introduce the special guest host tonight, the coolest thing about doing a podcast is I don't have a boss like in my ear or texting me and saying, "You're talking too much about hockey," for example, right? On a podcast, I can talk about whatever the bleep I want. And you know what I want to talk about tonight? I want to talk about hockey. I did seriously. I know we do a show called What the Puck, and we'll have it later on this week. We're trying to finagle another special guest. We've had some good guests lately, and I think we're going to have another one this week. But I want to talk hockey. Unfortunately, our buddy Blake can't be with us. So all the best to Blake and his family. But I wanted to call my buddy Mike. Mike and I haven't seen enough of each other the last 3 days. So
I've missed you, buddy. How you
yes, you know what? It's weird. I haven't seen you in about what 16 hours or something. So I was starting to twitch and fidget and everything. For people out there that don't know, Mike and I were well, quite frankly, together the last 72 hours, quite a bit. It was the MHSAA semifinals and finals at USA Hockey Arena. Always a fantastic time there. Always great hockey. Some unbelievable crowds. We'll talk about the champions in just a second. Mike, I figured we would start there before we talk about the NHL trade deadline and the Red Wings. I still think that there is a pretty big misunderstanding of where the Red Wings are at. And I want to talk to you about that very thing. But yeah, obviously, Mike and I were together a lot the last few days. We both work for state champs, and we had the distinct honor of being responsible for the all tournament teams, along with our buddy, the coach, Kirk Hunter. So we were busy watching a lot of hockey, and we were joking right before we went on the air. Mike, I'll let you pick up on this. I used to go to all day hockey and feel okay. And yeah, I'm ready. I'm good to go. I have been a good for nothing all day today. Literally. I mean, I'm gassed. It was a great time, but doing in essence 2.5 straight days of hockey wears you out.
Yeah, Sean, I was absolutely gassed probably about 7:45 last night, and then you know how the rest of that story goes. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but I got a second wind, if you would think. But I woke up this morning and it immediately went to the Aleve because the hips and the back, and I was tired. But so to take the day off, like I told you, I went to the rink today and watched the AAA state finals, and I'm sure I'll be paying for that in about an hour.
And it's not like this is a hop, skip, and a jump from your house either. I mean, what is it, about an hour to get down there? About an hour to get to where that was, Mike?
It should be an hour, but in case there's any police officers watching, they will not know that it took me about 40 minutes to get there. I left a little bit late and took off and got there, so it was quite a drive too, and that doesn't do the back any good either.
Yeah, I want to talk a lot about this past weekend and how much the sport has grown in this state and continues to grow. Obviously, as I mentioned, talk about the trade deadline, talk about where the Wings are at. As I said, I think there's a really big misconception about where the Red Wings are at right now, and I'd love to talk about it with you, Mike. And obviously, Big Ten tournament as well. Michigan State, of course, waits. Congratulations to Michigan. They knock off Notre Dame. Now we have to wait on upstart Ohio State and Wisconsin as well. So good time there. But Mike, honestly, it starts for people out there that don't know how it works at USA Hockey Arena, right there at back in M14. Thursday night, the MHSAA version of the Final Four starts. It's Division II. They have 2 games on Thursday. And then, of course, Division III comes in Friday morning. They have their 2 games, and then Division I has their 2 games. And then Saturday, it's championship Saturday. The day starts with the Division II final in the morning, Division III final in the afternoon, and the evening is usually the Division I final. Another successful weekend at USA Hockey Arena, and I think some changes are coming. We could talk about that when we know more about them. I think some changes are coming to the way it works, but let's just talk about the way it is right now. Just a fun weekend. And Mike, I know you can attest to this. I don't think the average person understands how good the level of hockey is right now in the MHSAA.
They don't try, and sometimes that shows in some of the crowds. And me and you spoke earlier today about the difference in the it's not Minnesota, and that whole talk, and that gets into, it starts, I believe, with people not understanding the level of play in these tournaments, and especially when it gets to Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. The guys there, Pratt, Walsh, Duffney, Petit, Freusland, the goalies, the play that we saw, that Mikey Millette, I don't want to forget him, but they don't know that. And a lot of people still think it's back in the 80s where high school hockey wasn't getting those players. But we talked Wednesday night, and we said, if you guys want to know, come on down to Beck and 5 Mile. Find out exactly for yourself how good these kids are. We saw some outstanding hockey this weekend.
It really was. And I think the cool thing about it is, Mike, is you mentioned a lot of those players, where they're coming from in this state. You mentioned Millette, kid from Houghton. What a great kid, too. Came up, shook my hand, looked me directly in the eye. Of course, Corey Markham, the longtime coach there, our buddy Micah coaching there. Both those guys are friends. You get teams from the west side. You get teams from the Traverse City area. And, of course, you get a lot of teams here in Southeast Michigan. Mike, to me, that's the coolest thing about it. There are a lot of programs and a lot of players coming from all over the state. And it's funny, and you touched on this. I don't think anybody is going to sit here and say, well, this is Minnesota, okay? Minnesota's kind of in a class by itself. The important thing to me is not try to compare yourself to Minnesota or anybody else, but compare yourself to yourself. And you mentioned the late 80s. Mike, I always go back 10 years ago. Where this product was 10 years ago and where this product is now are two entirely different places. And we're seeing the frantic crowds there, and we're seeing tremendous players. And, oh, by the way, guys that are moving on to the Null, and guys that are moving on to the USHL, and guys that are moving on to Division I teams, and even a few here and there to the National Hockey League. And that's, the message that I always send to people is this. There, no two paths are the same. And this is a path that is working for a heck of a lot of good players.
Absolutely. And that's one of the big things that have changed. And we know a lot of these coaches and a lot of these guys, and they want to push these guys on. There is a certain level of player, and that's not who we're talking about. We're not talking about your kids that were drafted in the USHL in their draft year, and they're playing a little bit of U18 before they go on. There's players right below that, and these coaches can move them on. You talk to any advisor, you talk to any scout, you get yourself in the right high school program, these kids are moving on, and the competition is there. And so when we talk about some of the problems with maybe high school hockey, is it's a program problem at times, to where some of these programs aren't exposing these kids. And me and Todd actually were just talking about a couple programs, Todd behind the scenes, and I said those programs he mentioned, they don't have those kids. They have the associations, they have the AAA kids within their boundaries. They can't get them because of that exposure, but
Yep.
It's there to be had. Sean, there were scouts all over the place last night. If you were an advisor, you were either in Taylor and booking over to USA Arena, or you were at USA Arena, because that's where your guys are. They're all over the place.
I'm probably going to sound like a jerk for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway, Mike. I've been fortunate. I have done broadcasts in college hockey. I've done broadcasts in the OHL. I've done broadcasts in the USHL. all the way to the NHL, but in particular, the leagues that are where you're trying to get into the NHL. And I will echo what you just said. I could not believe how many people I ran into in that barn just yesterday. Guys that I knew from the OHL days when I was working for the Whalers, guys that I knew from the NTDP days, guys that I had a chance to meet up at Michigan State. There were a ton of scouts in there. And I always go back to what Mike Vellucci said. My old boss with the Whalers, of course, he was an assistant GM in the NHL and now assistant coach with the Pittsburgh Penguins. He said, if you can play, they're going to find you. And what he means by they is scouts. And the word is out. Kids are playing at this level. Kids are graduating from this level. And Mike, I want to be crystal clear. I'm not saying that a kid that was out on the ice yesterday is going to roll straight to East Lansing and play for Michigan State next year, or roll straight to Ann Arbor and play for, Michigan. You know what? Give them a year in the NAL. Give them a year in the USHL. You know what? Let's check back in a couple of years. A lot of these kids, it happens sometimes. Some kids make a jump. You and I talked to Mark Beaufait on What the Puck, and he was a kid that made the jump straight out of high school. But listen, the fact remains, a lot of these kids, give them a year or two, let them develop, let them play against some older competition, and the cream finds a way to rise to the top.
Yeah, and you just reminded me of something that I wanted to ask you. So make sure you write this down. Something that we do have to bring up to Ryan and the guys there is our buddy Steve Hewlett sat down to watch the game Friday night, and he ended up next to a couple of scouts. And Steve, he can spark a conversation with anybody. He sparks a conversation with these guys, and they start asking him about this player and that player. But the big question they had was, how can we get to these kids? They wanted they wanted access to the players, and they didn't know how to get it. And that's something Steve didn't know. And it came to his mind, and he brought it up. So let's mark that one down, because they are there. And I don't know if they can, but we got to figure out how they can get access to some of these kids. And we're talking USHL, and we're talking the NAL, but let's not forget a lot of these kids that were playing this weekend are NCDC kids, are
Absolutely.
USPHL, NA3 kids, and they can get in there and they can get that start there. And mark my words, you follow these Twitter accounts of the NAL, those kids will be in the NAL. There was, how many players did we see play this weekend, Sean, that are going to be playing junior hockey next year and major junior hockey at some point in the next couple of years?
It's a fun weekend, and we haven't even talked about the results yet. I mean, that's the crazy thing about it. I mean, you know what? But Mike, even before we get to that, and again, I hope this doesn't sound condescending. I think a lot of people out there, and even a lot of the hockey fans, don't understand, the path, so to speak, and guys, the different paths that they take to get there. And this is a path that has worked for a lot of guys, and I think that. I think it's going to only get better from this point out, because I think the word is out. I can tell you, just talking to enough, people behind the scenes, whether it be scouts or institutions, without mentioning any names, MHSAA hockey's really hot right now. And in talking to people from Minnesota, okay, what makes it click? A lot of it is community. A lot of it is what you grew up with, but there are such strong hockey hotbeds here, and, budding hockey hotbeds here as well. And I think that's what makes the state of Michigan unique and fertile ground to plant some seeds and throw some water on it and watch it grow. And it's just doing nothing but continue to grow. It's UP. They're always going to play hockey, downriver, always going to play hockey. Our neck of the woods, Mike, out here in the western suburbs, always going to play hockey. But some of the areas where it's really, budding, it really warms the cockles of my heart.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things, we and you talk about this all the time. Sometimes you just have to be happy with what you have. Maybe we don't need 19,000 fans. I don't know if we have 19,000, and this is going to be bad, and I'm sure I'm going to get shot down by people. I don't know if we have 19,000 educated hockey fans around to sit there. Minnesota hockey fans are a little bit different, but be happy with what we got. And me and you said it all weekend. if we could get those AAA players that we talk about into that arena to see the 4,500 fans Saturday night, I think you could change some minds. Those programs could flip a few kids. On Friday night, that Clarkston Brighton had probably 3,500 fans there. That's another time for those programs to get those kids out there and maybe flip some of those kids.
Mike, I want to start there before we talk about championship Saturday. That crowd on Friday night, and I told the head coach at Brighton, Kurt Cavisto, this last night. Of course, Coach Cavisto, a national champion at Michigan State. He was part of the 2007 national champions at Michigan State. Go Green. I told Coach Cavisto 2 years in a row, you could say his Bulldogs put on the show of the weekend. Last year, if you don't recall, it was a 700 and I think what did it go 731 overtimes, Mike? Was it 731
it was
overtimes?
731. It was the record.
Yeah. Brighton and Heartland had an unbelievable game in front of a packed house on Friday night last year. And this year it was Brighton and Clarkston that put on an unbelievable show that went to overtime. It went 53 seconds, if I'm not mistaken,
Right. Yeah.
before Brighton won. But I'm going to use Clarkston as an example of what we were just talking about. Coach Breyer and his staff, kudos to them. There's a term that I use, the usual suspects. Okay. Clarkston has punched the door in and become one of the usual suspects. Started at a point, took their lumps, but they've built and built and built and built and came this close to playing for a championship just yesterday. And I told him after the game, Mike, you were standing right there. I shook his hand and I said, Coach, bravo. I mean, look what you've done. It's great for Clarkston. It's great for the entire state. It really is a fantastic thing.
And Sean, that's a perfect. Clarkston is a perfect example of what we've been talking about. From where they were a few years ago, you bring in a coach. He gets a couple of players to flip. He gets them to this weekend, and he sells these people on it. And I think we're pretty confident that they're going to be back and they're going to be a problem next year with some of the kids that they got coming in. And that's how a program gets on a roll. But it starts with that coach, and he's done a great job with that program and turning it into what it is.
Rich chimes in, says, fellas, happy Sunday. Great weekend in high school hockey this past weekend. It sure was. We're talking about that. We are going to get into the wings, get into a little college hockey as well. If you're just joining us, listen, I was just in the mood to talk hockey today. That's a cool thing about a podcast. You know what? Blake will join us in a couple days, and we're going to do a lot of draft stuff and talk about some other things. Quite frankly, there was a certain basketball game that ticked me off a little bit today that I'm not going to talk about because I'm going to stay in a good mood. I'm
Right.
Positive thoughts. Mike, yesterday, congratulations to Byron Center. We were just talking about the term, the usual suspects. This is a program that kind of burst on the scene a few years ago, took their lumps, took some big losses, but they kept building. They kept building. They kept keeping kids in their system, and it all culminated in a championship in Division II. They knock off perennial powers and some of the best guys you'll find out in Trenton. I mean that in all sincerity, but it was Byron Center's year, and they win a championship for the West Side.
Yeah, and sports is all about story, Sean, and it hit me this morning when I was driving to the rink again, what the stories were of this weekend. And it was a weekend of heartbreak. We had teams that had nothing but heartbreak in the last couple of years. Byron Center was one of those teams, and they came in. And as you said in your interview after the game, that coach told you 357 days now, or whatever it was, a year ago, that he was going to be back. And not only did he come back, but he came back, and what you have to have this weekend, we said it all day yesterday, your big dogs have to win you this game.
Yep.
And Pratt and Freuslin put on an absolute show, not just Saturday. This whole weekend, they were on fire. They had a great weekend, and they showed up, and Swanson in net. And I think, again, BC is another one of these programs that have built themselves into a team that's going to be here annually.
You are absolutely right. Jordan Stager looked me in the eye, said congratulations to those guys last year, and with a big smile on his face, Mike. I remember, I plain as day. I remembered. He goes, "We'll be back next year." By golly, Douglas MacArthur, for you history buffs out there, he did return, no doubt about it. Hey, we'll talk about some of the other action. Want to get into some NHL stuff as well. Rich brings up a good point. 0-5 with the sponsor patch. Is it a curse? I want to tell you about my friends at Wealth Advantage, though. You know what? I ran into, look at those two handsome fellas. See those two handsome fellas right there? Those are the Huzaks. I ran into their father. He's a huge high school hockey fan. Ran into him all weekend long. And if you are ready to take charge of your financial further, well, look no further than the Wealth Advantage Group located in historic downtown Northville, owned by two brothers, those handsome fellas right there, with over 20 years of industry experience. They understand that your financial goals are as unique as you are. That's why they offer personalized expert guidance to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning. Whether you're saving for retirement, getting ready to sell your company, or already in retirement, they can help guide you through every step of your financial journey. They work with clients throughout all stages of life, have clients in over 20 states. The investment world is a complex one. So if you are ready to start taking your finances more seriously, you need to call my guys, those two right there. Reach out to Wealth Advantage Group at 248-773-8574, 248-773-8574, or visit their website at www.thewealthadv.com. Please tell them that we sent you. Great guys, and they're going to help you out as they have helped us out. Did I mention they're great guys as well? He's Mike Ivasil. I'm Sean Belegian. I'm going to say it again. If you're just joining us, I'm just in the mood to talk hockey tonight. I can do this now. Mike, before I used to get yelled at. Seriously. They'd yell at me. Hey, you're talking too much about hockey. Screw you. I can talk about whatever the hell I want on this show now, right?
Yeah, and it's crazy. We've been talking this whole podcast about the weekend that we had. My voice is getting a little hoarse, but I missed it already. I miss it, and I'm so happy that I got the call up to the off the air pod and get to talk some.
The call up. Kids, you're going to the show.
I'm getting my cup of coffee.
Not quite like when Beaufait got that call to go to San Jose, but it's close, really, really close.
Right there.
Division III final, an incredible run by Cranbrook. And there are simple truths in the game of hockey. If you've got the quote unquote hot goaltender, and I know it's become an old bit to so many people, but if you've got the hot goaltender can take you a heck of a lot farther than anybody imagined. And congratulations go out to Coach LaFontaine and Cranbrook for getting it done again, Mike, winning a thriller over East Grand Rapids in 722 overtimes or something like that.
Yes.
Third overtime. Unbelievable game. My heart goes out to the Pioneers. Coach Newton and his staff in East Grand Rapids have done such a great job. Come this close 2 years in a row. Gave up a goal with 5 seconds left last year. Lost in triple overtime this year. But it was Cranbrook's turn, Mike. What an incredible run for the Cranes.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth with heartbreak, Sean. When we walked on that ice, seeing those kids, they were basically just laying on their stomachs on the ice in disbelief. But on to Cranbrook, Garrett Dudler, 52 saves. And I honestly, I could probably go on for a half an hour talking about this game. But I've got to tell you what, when we got upstairs after the press conference, I was talking to my wife. And I didn't talk about the game. I talked about the young men that we met in that press conference, Sean. Not only Saturday, but Friday. And Seco, Horton, and Dudler. We joked Seco came off as a 10-year NHL veteran on that podium talking to us, and what a great bunch of kids from Dudler. Mentioning the religious part of it, and I think it caught us all a little off guard having a 17-year-old kid bring that up.
It was awesome.
But Sean, what I caught out of that was Dudler going over to Joe Green, the losing goaltender, and consoling him for a good couple of minutes. And you don't see that. It's we're so quick to jump into our crowds and celebrate with our boys, but his first instinct was to go over there. Seco's first instinct was to grab me not once, but twice this weekend and wish my son good luck. The two of them have played a lot of games in the MDHL, and you don't see that a lot. So kudos to Cranbrook. We all said that if you would have told us a month ago that this was going to happen, we would have said no way.
No way.
But they all to a T said, the captains and the coach, about a month ago, they finally gelled together, and you could see it. I mean, they were losing games they shouldn't lose. What did Coach LaFontaine say? They lost 5-3-0 games, and they just knew it was going to happen. Then they come out here, and they put together just a great team effort all weekend.
Coach LaFontaine, Mike, the apple didn't fall too far from the tree with his boys. One of the classiest guys out there, always has a kind word for other people. I mean, that is one thing that has always jumped out to me in my time in knowing Coach LaFontaine. He's just a class act, and his kids conducted themselves as such. Nobody thought they would be there. And yet there they are, another championship in Cranbrook. Division III, to me this year, Mike, was really the division of intrigue.
Yes.
I know we have mutual friends up in Houghton. They had an incredible season, but how many times do you see it even in the National Hockey League? You run into that hot goaltender and your best laid plans just go the way of the dodo bird. And certainly that was the case in Division III with Cranbrook this year.
Yeah, and it speaks to the elephant in the room, the MIHL, and the schedule that they put together, and the teams that they have in there, and the level of competition that you have year in and year out there. When I was at Grosse Pointe North, I think I've told you several times, some of our best teams were 12-12.
Yeah.
Because of the schedule you put together, and you look at some of the teams Cranbrook lost to, they're some of the top programs. They had some stinkers in there too, but it's something to be said that when you get to USA Arena, an MIHL schedule, it pays off there, Sean. You're used to the competition. Houghton may come with the number 2 ranking, but you've played some teams too. They're not going to throw you for too big of a loop, and Cranbrook was not thrown for a loop at all from the get-go. Maybe the first 3 minutes we gave to Houghton, right?
Yeah.
And after that, the game really went Cranbrook's way.
Boy, can Millette fire the shot. I think to myself, in that game, Mike, if that puck is an inch lower and finds the top of the net, how does that game turn out? Instead, he whistles a drive that just goes crossbar, and it was onward and upward from that point on. We'll talk about Division I. I know that has a special place in your heart. First, I want to tell you about our friends at Legacy. We've been talking about these guys, and for good reasons. I always say this, they're hockey fans. That has to count for something. I mean, come on, let's get that out of the way right now. That has to count for something. But all jokes aside, did you know that thousands of Metro Detroiters have already called Legacy Partners to get help with their home and auto insurance? Our friends at Legacy Partners are one of Southeast Michigan's top independent insurance agents and provide a full-service, one-stop solution for all of your insurance needs, personal and business, large or small. Listen, they're great guys. I know these guys, had lunch with these guys. Put them to the test. Ask for a quote. Tell them we sent you. Say, hey, they're talking you up. You can find out the Legacy difference yourself, because they have helped many people out there by fixing mistakes other agents have made, asking the right questions to get you the right coverage and put in place to properly protect you. Yes, and save you money at the same time. Chances are, if you haven't checked your policies in the last year, you're probably paying too much and you could be underinsured. That's where Legacy Partners jumps in. What are you waiting for? Put them to the test. Get your quote. Give Legacy Partners a chance to help you with your home, your cars, life insurance, Medicare enrollment, or your business insurance needs. Call them today, 586-209-4106, or visit legacypartnersins.com to get started with your new quotes. Mike, I'm going to get it out of the way right now. What hat are you wearing, by the way? Can you put your hat down? Oh, that's interesting. 2023. I think we just blew the lead right there, showing that cap. But congratulations to Catholic Central. 5 championships in a row. Another dandy against Brighton. They knock off Brighton 2-0 yesterday. I have the utmost respect for both the coaches. I consider Kurt Kavisto a friend. I can consider Coach Cal a friend. This is one of those games, 2 teams, Mike. I know it's cliche. It's sad one of them had to lose, but in the end, it was Catholic Central getting it done. And if you're wondering why Mike is wearing that cap, his son is a member of the team. So congratulations to Seb for his 3rd championship. But Mike, it was exactly what you would expect from Brighton and Catholic Central. It was a great game with a great crowd and a fantastic way to cap off a great weekend.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head all the way from the beginning with the 2 coaches. They run great programs. Then the crowd was great. The game was great. The game was competitive. So it's the 3rd straight year in a row that they've played, and it's gotten more and more competitive each time. I think the first one 3 years ago was 5-1. Last year was 3-0, and this year was 2-0. And I've got to say that I think it's a different game if Birchfield is 100% healthy. But I still have to give that kid kudos for going out there and playing the game that he did.
Warrior.
You could see, and this is high school hockey. You could see what that Brighton jersey meant to him. There was no way. I mean, I know we all asked, was he going to play? But in the back of our heads, we all knew he was going to play. But he ran into what we have all said, you have said. I think Coach Cal would say, not on camera, but off camera, one of the deepest forward groups that you are ever going to see in high school hockey. And they showed it there. They've showed it all year. Sean, in the semifinals, the 4th line was on the ice for 4 goals. 3 of them scored by the forwards. Last night, it didn't matter if they tried to match up Duffney and Petit with the 4th line. They could just skate with just about anybody. And it honestly, sitting here, it sounds weird to say, but my heart is still breaking for those boys in Brighton because you know how close I am with them, and I know the families, and I know them. And I think I even said sorry to a couple of them because those boys deserve better. They've played a heck of a high school career. But unfortunately, someone's got to lose, right? And Catholic Central came out on top. But Sean, I had a conversation. I'm sorry for going long-winded here, but I had not 1 but 2 conversations with Coach Cal after the game yesterday. As you know, the agreement I had with him was that I wouldn't talk to him for 3 years. And I didn't. I didn't talk to him.
Well, go ahead. I have something to add to that in just a second. Go ahead.
I had to show him my press pass every time I asked him a question because it was for one of the games that we were doing. But I had a couple conversations with him, and I just had to give him the credit that was due. It was great to finally see him get that Coach of the Year, by the way. But to say, you don't hear it enough. All you're going to hear, and the crying's already started on Twitter about private schools and stuff, but put that all aside. How that guy prepares a team to play game in and game out. These are boys when it comes down to it. And they can get ahead of the game and think that they're good. Sean, I've been there 3 years. I don't think I've ever seen that. I said they even came out at times looking like the underdog the way they were playing. I mean, they had their times and their hiccups, but I had to give Coach Cal some kudos and a lot of it, and I appreciate that he actually sat there and let me talk for a couple of minutes.
I'm gonna get your back, and you don't know he and I had this conversation yesterday, but I want to bring up something first from the Brighton perspective. We in essence watched a few guys grow up, and I mean, three guys that have a bright future in Levi Pinella, their goaltender, Cameron Duffney, who was unbelievable this year, and I think the emotional heartbeat, if you will, of the team in Lane Petit.
Yeah.
And after the game, Lane was kind of the whole rest of the team was in the locker room, and he's just staring at the ice. And Mike, I don't think you were down there, but he walked up to me and he was like, "Mr. Blegian, thank you for everything you do." And I looked at him and I was like, "No, thank you for everything you did." Those kids were a blast to watch. And I mentioned Coach Cavisto, winning a national championship at Michigan State. Coach Cal was no slouch playing at Michigan as well. I'm going to get your back here because it was funny. Johnny Kidd kind of put Cal on the spot yesterday when we were doing the interviews on the ice. And he was like, "Can you talk about your relationship with Sean?" And like Coach kind of got this look on his face and he was like, "Oh, it's always great to see Sean." And, yeah, great like that. So as soon as the camera goes off, he goes, "I didn't know, like, are people supposed to know that we're friends?" And I was like, "Cal, I'll tell anybody you're my friend. I can separate covering a team and things like that." But to that point, one of the things we were joking about is we were all together. We had one of our infamous barbecues the night the Lions season started, and Coach Cal was there. And honest to goodness, neither Mike or myself talked about hockey one time. Well, we talked about hockey. We just didn't
Yep.
talk about Catholic Central hockey.
Yep.
We were there. We're just fans eating some, barbecue and all that stuff, watching the Lions beat the Chiefs. So I got your back there, pal. You've been pretty good about that. You've been able to separate between the two.
And moreover, to back to the Brighton program and the way Coach Cavisto runs that programs and the young men that he has that we did get to see Lane and Duff grow up at, and I didn't get to know them too well. I talked to them a couple times when we were in Minnesota and did some trips, but that '06 KV Renegades team has a special place in my heart. And
Ooh.
so you had Lane Petit come up to you and talk to you. Aiden Sider sought me out last night, and in probably one of the worst moments of his life, right? And he came up and he said the same thing. He said, "Thank you. Thank you for what you guys do for hockey." And I said, "Aiden, stop. What you guys did out there tonight, thank you. That is what high school hockey needs, what you did, and you should be proud of what you did." I said, "It hurts now." Told Levi Pinella the same thing. There's not a word I can say right now. It's gonna hurt, but what you boys did was special,
Yeah.
and it meant a lot to high school hockey. And I'm glad I got to witness it. You
No,
know,
and you know what? I mean, it's like anything else. I mean, especially, when I was working in the big, so to speak, you have a lot of friends. You have to cover things objectively. And both things can be true. You can be friends with a guy, but if that guy's not getting it done, you can say, "Hey, listen, they got to pick it up," whatever the case may be. You just try to never get personal and everything works itself out. But Mike, a fantastic weekend. There's no doubt about that. I want to get to the Wings in just a second, but first, can I tell you about our friend Lindsay Broadwell? If you are in a position that a lot of people find themselves in, maybe it's time to sell a house, buy a house, whatever the case may be, you need to contact somebody that I recommend, an expert, Lindsay Broadwell. Your house is probably the biggest investment you will ever make, and that's why you need a pro. Lindsay grew up on the mean streets of Northville and has expanded her team all over Southeast Michigan. She's an expert in all facets of the business. When it's time to move, our friend Lindsay and her team will make sure you get the most out of your house and everything goes smoothly when finding your new home. Buyers, sellers, first-time batters, doesn't matter. Make sure you contact Lindsay at BroadwellHomes.com. She will help you with everything from start to close. Licensed realtor at Real Broker LLC. Start your search today at BroadwellHomes.com. Pretty cool family there as well. There's no doubt about that. Nice to see Kennedy Broadwell in Traverse City, or excuse me, from Traverse City down there as well. Congratulations to the Reps on their run. Fun weekend. Mike, I'm going to say it again. I think you and I talked about this a few weeks ago on What the Puck, and then it happened. I think people in this town, more often than not, are victims of their own expectations. More often than not. Now, sometimes that's not the case. I think for many years, the Lions let us down. I think what's happened with the Pistons in the last couple of years, specifically since they drafted Cade, it has let us down. I saw this coming a million miles away. And when I say a million miles away, I'm talking 3 years ago. When I was doing the thing with Blaine Fowler, I told people this. I think you and I talked about this a month ago. It's great that the Red Wings are in a legitimate playoff rush right now. And they are. They're still in that legitimate playoff rush. I don't feel as confident as I did a couple weeks ago about them getting in, but this is a legitimate playoff race. But they're not ready yet. And Mike, I'll tell you what, this past week leading up to the NHL trade deadline, if I had a dime for the amount of times somebody sent me a DM or texted me and said, "Hey man, seriously, are you hearing anything? What are you hearing?" And my answer was the same every single time. And I know you and I talked about this a plethora of times. What can you give up? What assets do you have right now that would make any other team? And we can look at all the guys that were traded, okay? We could go one by one and go, if I'm that general manager, Steve Yzerman is offering who exactly? What would entice me to jump at that? What would entice me to do business with the Red Wings? So that's part one. I want to get your thoughts on that. Part two, and I know nobody wants to hear this, but I'm going to keep saying this until I'm blue in the face. They aren't ready yet. We're not even 5 years in yet, guys. This was going to be a 5-year plan. Where they're at a year from now will tell me where they are on the schedule, okay? But honestly, day one, April 19th, 2019, if you couldn't figure out this was going to be a 5-year plan, that's your fault, because he all but told you that's exactly what it was going to be. But Mike, so many things going on. I think I want to start there with the people that just couldn't understand the Red Wings aren't in that position to be a wheeler dealer player yet at trade deadline.
Well, it's the running bit that we have and we say with "Hey Hockey Town." You know how they get. They drink that Kool-Aid. They think they're ready, and once we had that, I think that 6-game winning streak we just had, it's out of control. And I think you hit it on the head. I mean, people thought that we were going to trade what I always mess this guy's name up, Bergeron, for Tkachuk or for someone. How come we didn't get this guy? There's nothing there, but that is Red Wing fan and their unrealistic expectations. Just looking at that roster, you should know that they're not ready. And now they're showing it. They're showing what we were talking about, that razor thin depth that they had, where you just plucked Larkin out for a couple of weeks. And I don't know if they've got a win in them. I was encouraged by the compete level to come back last night.
I agree.
In the Vegas game. Because the night before it was very interesting. We were talking about it all day because we were watching the game actually from USA Arena on John Watson's phone, the game in Arizona.
Shit show. I'm sorry. I had something in my throat.
Now you're throwing me all off. Now you got me thrown off. But Lalonde, he called them out after the game, and I kept saying, this is going to be interesting now to see how they responded. I like that they responded. I love the way Raymond is responding. He's picking up a lot of aspects of his game that he's got to learn to grow in his youth. So again, there's some potential there. We like what's going on. I know you and Blake were getting on me and asking me if I was jumping off the train.
Are you in?
I'm in. I am in. I told you. Once I'm in, I'm in. You can't jump off a moving train. You know, I am on this thing. However, I will be looking at renewing my whether I renew my subscription or not as the season goes along. But I think me and you are very realistic with where they're at and what's going on.
100%.
The only thing that scares me is when I saw that last game, the compete level scared the heck out of me, and just how far I think they still have to go to get there, and that was proven in that how childish they looked in the Colorado game.
I'm going to say it again, Mike. I mean this, and I know people get mad at me for saying this. I don't care if they make the playoffs this year. It's not going to change what I think about where they're at one iota, not one iota. And I'll remind everybody what Steve Yzerman had to say. It's about winning championships, not getting back into the playoffs. What would you say your feeling is right now, percentage-wise, of them getting in? Because you have two different things going on. You have the Wings kind of falling and obviously talking about injury situations. And you have Lou Lamoriello going Lou Lamoriello and making a change when nobody thought he was going to make a change and bringing in a guy where it took a little while, but he lit a fire under their butts in Patty Waugh. What would you put the percentage at that the Wings are going to make the playoffs right now?
Am I
You want me to go first? Do you want me to go first?
No, I got to ask, am I a fence sitter by saying 50-50? Because I don't feel great. I don't, Sean, because we've talked about our feelings on this team. What encourages me is that there's still a plus differential in the goals against, and that is huge. If you go and you look at the standings, every team that's in the playoffs right now is a plus goal differential team. And other than Detroit, who's right there hanging on the end, you've got Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's falling off right now. Everybody in between, like, I don't know how Washington's doing it. Like,
I don't either. I don't.
can't figure that one out. New Jersey would be the team that really scares me outside of the Islanders. But so that's where my, like, I don't have a great feeling, but I'm still not under 50%.
I'm with you. The reason why I laughed when you said 50 is because I think even a week ago I probably would have said 80, and I'm right about 50-50 right now. Honestly, I'm right about 50-50 right now. I'm not going to be surprised if they don't make it, and I won't be surprised if they do. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at right now. But I think if anything, this was a subtle reminder that no, it's not being a quote unquote hater when you're not jumping on the train of people saying, yay, it's car flag season again. And I mean, no disrespect when I say that. I hope you know that. But I think the people that were ready to put the cart in front of the horse, and certainly putting a car flag up doesn't dictate that. But I think a lot of people thought that they were ready to make a run and everything. We're just not there yet. You wear your car flag all damn year, as far as I'm concerned. Let me talk about the Rockers very quickly. The Rockers this past weekend, how about this? Take 2 out of 3 at home. You know what Meatloaf said about 2 out of 3. It ain't bad. They knock off Waterton 4-2, beat the Blue Ridge Bobcats 4-1 this afternoon. They've got 3 games next weekend at home, 2 of them at Big Boy Arena, 6:05. They host the Port Huron Prowlers. And then how about this? A St. Patrick's Day matinee game, 2:05 in the afternoon, taking on the Prowlers as well. Mike, maybe you and I can find a way to get out to one of those games. I think that would be fantastic. A Big Boy Arena. Make sure you check them out, mcrockershockey.com. Gordy Brown, a high school hockey playing legend, and certainly a good coach as well, is the man behind the bench for the Motor City Rockers, and they've done a fantastic job. Mike, who improved themselves at trade deadline? Who do you look at right now and say, okay, they went from dangerous to incredibly dangerous? Anybody jump out to you?
A couple of teams jumped out to me, and one is a team that me and you are both heavy on, was with the Colorado Avalanche, and adding Middlestat there. I mean, what a second line addition that is going to be.
Huge.
And they lose Byram, but they pick up Walker from Philadelphia, and that's good. That's going to help them with their defense on depth. And you missed it earlier. Now we're going to get off the rails here. Is that Nelly was down here for about 5 seconds?
I love it.
And if she could have stayed down here, you would have absolutely lost your mind that I would have had a dog down here.
I love it. Okay, you know what? Now you're right. We are going off the rails, okay? Because I'm calling you out right now. And thanks to your daughter Liv for giving me this. Like, so Todd, and to everybody else out there, Mike is a lifelong dog hater. And yes, I'm using the H word, hater. Just like I'm a Red Wing hater, Mike is a lifelong dog hater, okay? And you know what happens? They get themselves this beautiful dog, just a lovely dog, beautiful eyes, Nellie.
Nelly.
And Mike, you're in love. You're smitten, aren't you?
I
Say it.
you know the story of this dog. You know who I am. You know my kind soul that you called out. That and for
My
everyone out
kind
there,
soul that you called out.
and for everyone out there that doesn't know, my daughter or adopted a dog that was severely abused, and it absolutely breaks my heart. If you know the work that I do as a social worker, this is probably the only dog that could have stole my heart, and she has. She's a great dog. And I've been trying to get her to bring her down here, but she is so nervous Nellie, the name, that I don't know if they're going to be able to get her down here. But oh, I hear her.
So literally we're at the game Friday night, and his daughter was like, Mr. Belegian. And she starts scrolling through her phone, and I see all these pictures of Mike playing lovey face with the dog. And I go, you're me, because that's what I do. Oh, look at I saw for a second.
There.
Oh, I love dogs. See, welcome to the club. Welcome to the club. It's a This is so good.
Can you see that? Did you get that?
I saw the
I
kiss.
feel bad now, Sean. I made her whimper. I was trying to pull her, and it's just look, Sean.
That's so damn good. Because then, like, Mike will come over my house, and I have Rocket and Rest Carry Soul and now Cole, and the dogs will go crazy and like try to play with them. Mike gives that kind of Arnold from Different Strokes look. What you talking about, Rocket? What you talking about, Cole? Like he wants nothing to do with them. And then I see these pictures of Mike playing lovey with Nellie. It's awesome. It's fantastic. All right, let's try to get focused, and then we're going to end this. So Colorado,
Yeah.
I love what Florida did. You and I talked about this in What the Puck, but I think it bears repeating. You are asking Tarasenko to come in and be a piece as opposed to be the man. And I love that. That's why I like that mood. That is a piece as opposed to this is going to put us over the top because look, it's not going to change anything. I mean, Florida's still, a wagon, but this could, add a little speed going downhill. But what else you got?
I've got Carolina too.
Huge.
Carolina adds Gensel. They added Kuznetsov. Let's hope he has his life together and he can get things going. But the key to that one is not only what they brought in for this run right now, Sean, but they did not give up any of their top prospects. So that helps them going forward too.
Local guy, I guess I could say my former boss with Carolina, Don Waddell, has done a fantastic job because he was much maligned, if you remember, in his time in Atlanta. He has done a fantastic job with Carolina. I'd love to try to get him on our What the Puck show as well. Look at our buddy Joe just joined the chat. This is great. Dogs are the absolute best. My dog, Henri, has me wrapped up big time. No doubt. No, Mike, when I took my nap today, do you know who was curled up next to me? Not my loving children, loving wife, anything like that. So two dogs. They're laying. One's laying on my chest. The other one's like down at like a holster at my hip. I was out like a light for an hour and 45. Dogs rule. No doubt about it.
I can't get a dog that Nellie's a little bit too nervous, but Olivia is her human. And she will just basically lay right on top of her head and sleep, and she goes wherever she goes. But now I've got to go apologize. I made her whimper a little bit there, trying to get her on camera, trying to be too human.
All right, we got to get out of here. Like I said, listen, here's the biggest difference between like doing one of the television shows that I've done in the past or doing a radio show. I don't have some idiot in my ear going, "You're talking too much about hockey." Screw you. We just talked 55 minutes of hockey. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Mike, we have to figure out what day we're going to do What the Puck this week.
Okay.
If Friday night's open, maybe we could do a little Friday edition or something like
Friday,
that.
I think Friday would be good.
Okay. Hopefully we can do something with Blake again. Want to talk about what's going on in college basketball. It's just a disaster in the state. There's no other way to say that. But we look ahead to the Big Ten tournament. We look ahead to the brackets being announced next Sunday as well. Thanks to Todd behind the scenes. Most importantly, after I thank my buddy Mike Ivesil and Nelly, thank you for joining us. Please tell your friends about it. Like us. Whatever. I forget the list. What did Blake say? Like us, share it. What is it, Mike? Is
Like,
what am I
like
leaving?
it, share it, retweet it, quote
Tell
it.
people about it. What
I don't know.
whatever.
I have no idea. Talk. Oh, like it, right? Oh, subscribe. Do we have to subscribe?
Like, share, comment, review. See, Todd just jumped in. I appreciate that. And certainly support those who support us. Without them, we couldn't be here. We try to have a lot of fun. Yeah, and subscribe. Yeah. So the YouTube page is up now, right?
Back up.
I think so. I saw something like that over the weekend, but we were at the rink and my brain was like, tag your friends. Thank you, Ted. Tag your friends. Right. Ted, we're going to be talking a lot about the Memorial Cup coming up as well. We're going to do a lot of stuff with that. Big Ten tournament going on with hockey. So lots of things to do on What the Puck. But in the meantime, till next time, for Mike, I'm Sean. See you.
Off the Air with Sean Baligian, featuring Sean Baligian and Blake Matrazak. Produced by Todd Losey and Blake Matrazak. Executive produced by Sean Baligian and Todd Losey. Theme song, incidental music, and related sound effects are from Play It Loud by Jam Studio. Engineering, mixing, and graphic design support provided by the Unsyndicated Podcast team. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Off the Air with Sean Baligian on all your favorite channels. While you're there, be sure to rate and review the podcast. Got something to say to Sean? Call the Unsyndicated hotline at 248-237-3257.